So I have been working a lot and not sleeping much, so I'm kind of behind on all of my nerdoms, but I finally had a chance to watch Picard episode 2, and I would just like this question answered. Where in the hell is this dog? Hi guys, my name is Maria Park, and this is Approach to Nerd, and in this episode we are reviewing Picard episode 2, entitled Maps and Legends. Not a lot happened in this episode. There was a lot of exposition, but I'm just going to kind of go over what I remember of it because going scene by scene by scene is pretty boring. So these are the key things that I noticed in the episode. So we learned that on Mars, they build their ships on the surface of the planet. Which is weird because if you play mobile games like Star Trek Fleet Command, you know all ships are built in space. They've always been built in space. OG, Trek, I've never seen a ship not built or constructed in space. But for some reason, they are now planetary. And I blame Abram for this because in the last movie, they reconstructed the U.S. Enterprise. If I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure they did when it got destroyed when they were on that planet. On the port they were at. So considering the Kelvin universe and the Prime universe both share their Romulan supernova, in common, it kind of makes sense that they pull influence from the Abram movies because Star Trek Discovery does. So that makes sense. But yeah, so that was a little weird, but we did see that the Sith revolt, or synthetic revolt, happened first on Mars, with the one that the synthetic that was kind of spotlighted was one called F8. And it was basically being bullied by the other crew members with millennial jargon that my daughter uses and she's 23, which is very weird. And they were making comments, saying things like, oh, don't worry about it. He's not human. He can't feel anything, blah, blah, blah. So in the interim of them doing that, you look at F8's eyes and they kind of switch. It's like a kill switch moment you see in all the sleeper movie agents, all the sleeper movies where they're brainwashed to assassinate you. And it's pretty much what happens. He starts fiddling on the computer. The crew tries to stop him. He kills them all. He kills the security guards that run in, and then he takes a gun or phaser and he blows his brains out, probably because the person that did this, who made all the synthetics revolt, did not want it traced back to them. Then we learned that Laris and Zaban, who I probably butchered his name, but I'm tired and I don't speak Romulan, used to be Romulan agents for the Tal Shiar, and that they were talking about the secret organization that went out of my head that starts with a V. It's probably going to come to me when I'm done filming. I'm just doing this straight here. And that the agency that is supposedly so scary and gonna make you lose your mind if you knew all their secrets and is on the same level as Section 31, scrubbed all evidence of Daj being attacked and in basically even being there during the explosion that almost took out Picard. We also learned that Laris is able to use this forensic technology scanner where she can scan a room and pick up residue or remnants of time. So if you're in a room or you ever sat somewhere, she could aim this machine and see what you were doing, which is kind of weird and it's kind of invasion actually. But they learned that when they did do or use the machine, that even Daj's essence or residue or whatever was erased in her apartment as well. But Laris, being a super brilliant Romulan ex-spy, basically, was able to hack into her computer. Maybe she didn't need to hack. Maybe it's just completely open source. I don't know. But she was able to go through her contacts to see who contacted her and who she contacted, because they realized that if she had a twin sister, of course, they would communicate with each other. Not really assuming that maybe they could have been on bad terms, because Daj never mentioned having a twin sister in the first part. So you would think when she's talking about, I was raised by my dad and he had these hybrid flowers and I was named after one. And I'm like, what about your twin? I think that's an important thing. When you just realize you may not be real, you might want to say, Picard, I also have a sister. Is she real too? Never came up. But anyway, they were able to look at the communication devices and see that there was off-planetary contact from somewhere. So of course, they deduced that that was Soji. They don't know her name. Soji the twin. So, or I don't think they know her name. I just know that Picard thinks it's Data's other daughter. So anyway, this kind of gets Picard, spurred. He's like, oh, off planet. This equals space, which means we're finally going to space. But right before he gets to deal with that, he has a visit from his old friend who was a doctor that served on Picard's first ship, the Stargazer, and Moritz. And he has news about his health. He says, for your age, your health is great, except you have this little abnormality in your brain that eventually may kill you. And that's actually the same thing that happened in the series finale of TNG when Q was time jumping Picard. He went into the future and saw that he had a neurological disease. He basically had Dr. Crusher examine him, and she found the same abnormality. And she even said that in the future, it may bother you or may cause you to have a neurological condition that could kill you, or may do nothing at all. Well, Picard pretty much took the news as, okay, I'm working on borrowed time, even though Maurice did not say he actually knew what syndrome he had because he had to run more tests. But Picard's not thinking about that because Picard's going to space. So then we see Dr. Girardi for like a millisecond, and she basically gives him the news that, yeah, Soji, or whatever, Dodge is not real. Her credentials that got her into this fancy Japanese science school, yeah, all fake. She's only been alive for 3 years. So they're essentially 3 years old. Fun. And another cool thing is, so he talks to Admiral Clancy at Starfleet because Picard convinces Maurice to tell him that he has a clean bill of health and clear him for duty. And he goes to ask for a ship and a small crew. And she's like, you must be out of your beeping mind. You talked all this crap about us on TV, and you're like, really asking me for stuff? We learn through that conversation where she's literally tearing him a new one, that the reason that Starfleet pulled out of saving the Romulans was they were low on ships, but representatives from all of the planets that were in the alliance with them were threatening to pull out, which is totally something that happened in the Orville, by the way. That's a whole other conversation. But because of that, Starfleet caved and left those Romulans. And really, that's weird because that's not the Starfleet we all grew up with. They would have never been pressured by that, but it's a new political Starfleet, so what can you say? But yeah, so basically, no joy for Picard, no ship, no crew, he's on his own. So we see him grab one of his own old comm links, and he makes a call, and we know it's to Rafi, basically. If you don't know who Rafi is, then please read IDW comics in general, from Star Trek Continues all the way to Picard Countdown, which she is a character in Picard Countdown. She is a lieutenant and his number one, basically, and she's a Romulan specialist. In the comics, they were kidnapped at some point, and that's how they meet. They meet Loris and Zhaban, his servants or housekeeper and butler, whatever you want to call them, his staff. They actually helped them escape when they were kidnapped in the comics on Romulus, which I probably shouldn't have said because that's kind of like I'm spoiling it, but I figure it's going to be in the backstory anyway. But that's why he has Zhaban, Loris, and he has the Rafi reference because they were all in that comic series. So good series. Go to Amazon, download on Kindle. It's awesome. But anyway, he contacts Rafi and he says, don't hang up. I need your help. Which tells me there's bad blood, because there wasn't, if I remember the ending of that comic, which I own, they didn't have bad blood. So I don't know what happened. I think maybe when he decided to retire from Starfleet, maybe something happened with her and she got fired too, or I don't know. I don't know what happened, but she's not happy with him at all. And when he shows up to her place in the middle of like the desert or whatever, she basically pulls a gun on him and tells him to go home, but he bribes her with information that there are secret Romulan organization taking over Earth. Oh, and I got alcohol. So, priorities. She lets him in. But, so yeah. Back to Soji. So Soji is in the Romulan Research Borg Cube facility. That's what I'm calling it. I don't know. And she basically is sleeping with Narek, and Narek is sleeping with her to get information, because we find out that there's a Commodore named O who is kind of running things, and more than likely is the one that's behind the original attack on Dodge, and who knows what else. and that they want something from her. As a matter of fact, the Romulans want something in general because there's a reason they're there, looking at artifacts and extracting, the eye implants, and they want information from the Borgs, and we don't know why. There's something shady going on with that. But Romulans are a little shady. And then we have Lieutenant, is it Rizzo? Narek's sister is working for Commodore O, and her team is like the team that when it attacked Dodge and Picard were her team, and they were not supposed to destroy her. They were supposed to bring her back to be interrogated. So Commodore O is ticked, and so Lieutenant Rizzo, whatever, it's something with an R, I'm tired. She got in trouble, and that's when we learned that the person she recommended is her little brother, and that's Narek. So Narek is sleeping with Soji for information, and Rizzo's basically on her way there and basically told him, if you don't get the information your way through sex, then I'm going to do it my way, and I don't know what that means. But we do know that Soji has no idea she's a synthetic. She's very sympathetic to the Borgs, or the bodies of the Borgs, to the point where she doesn't like calling them the nameless. So she has a conscience. She's very, she's very soft-hearted, basically. So, yeah, there's some shady stuff going on there. It's just a really weird thing. So, there's a lot of things that happened in this episode. I mean, we learned about the freaky Section 31 counterpart with Romulans. Where Romulus had this whole group that's just so in the shadows, and that they could even wipe somebody's existence from videos. And Laura's having that device when she was at Dodge's place to just find, time. Does that mean that we all have time residue? I'm standing here. If I leave from this camera, the residue's still there. So this moment in time will always be captured, whether I record it or not. That's very weird. Just saying. But yeah, so that was pretty much in a nutshell. There's a lot of exposition, a ton of exposition, because Picard is going into space, so maybe they're trying to get it all out in the pilot in the second episode. But there's a lot of exposition. We still have no idea where Bruce is. And I want to know where number one is. Not Riker, the dog. Where is the dog? This is a really big house, I know, but I mean, that dog is attached to Picard. No dog. Is he in timeout? Is he dead? Are they feeding him? I mean, it's very, very confusing. And then why do Saban and Lars not have the same adapted accent? Lars is extremely Irish, which doesn't make sense, because if she was actually adapting to her environment, she should have had a French accent. So did she spend time in Dublin? I mean, what? I don't understand why she's Irish and Saban is American. Just questions that I have. Good episode, just lots of questions. But I'm still committed, and I'm very excited to see what happens next week, especially with Rafi, and maybe we get to see Riker and Diana. I would love to see them and their kids, if we get to see them. And, it would be awesome. I just want to see where it goes, because it looks like it's going to be an interesting ride. But hey, that is my opinion. Tell me what you think. Leave me a comment below and let me know. And if you would like to sign up for jury duty, hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to know who's next in the nerd ballot, hit the notification bell. Until next time, I can't wait for you to approach the nerd. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it, but hey, the party doesn't have to stop now. Click on one of these videos and keep it going.